Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Good evening, everyone. You're welcome to today's class. Let me share my screen shortly so that we can get right into it. And please let me know when you can see my screen. Okay. Can you all see my screen? I guess
Yes.
yes. Okay. All right. So today will be well, right now we are all on Figma and getting to learn how Figma works and how to use all the tools. So it will just be a continuation of last week's class. I don't know if my screen has come up because you should see UI design with Figma. Okay, awesome. All right, so what we'll be talking about today, we'll be talking about the concept of responsive design, designing interfaces using layout and grids, because it's very important. And then how to create local style guides, and how to design call to action buttons, and we'll just do some practicals on Figma on how to do all of these, because they are all components to how you would design either an application, a mobile application, or a web application. Okay, so let's get started. Me and these my little minions, I love them, but it's good for the body. All right, so the concept of responsive design. Basically, responsive design is a graphic user interface design approach that is used to create content that adjusts smoothly to various screen sizes. So you can see, let's just like the image we have here, as a designer, you should know that when you're designing for a product or an application, you would have to, the product will not just be used on the phone alone, except if maybe you're designing a mobile app. There's a difference between a mobile application, like the one you download from Play Store, and a web app, like that you would access through your browser, right? So it's very important to know how to design responsively, so that even if this design is being seen on a mobile app, on a mobile phone, it doesn't look totally different, or there's still consistency, okay, across both the mobile application, the website, if it's being seen on a tablet, right? So it helps for consistency across all devices. So if someone, just like if you open Facebook on your phone, not the mobile app, like the web app which you open through your browser, okay, you can see that even if you open it on your phone and on the website, on maybe on your laptop, there's a consistency. It doesn't look totally different. So it's very important to understand the concept of responsive designing. All right, so we'll just talk about some best practices for responsive design. Well, I know people who would say that they would prefer, if you're being given a project, they would prefer to start with the desktop screen, like the large screen, before the mobile first. But based on best practices, it's most times advisable to take the mobile first approach. Okay, so it's very important, because when you're able to, a mobile screen is smaller than a web screen, like the desktop screen. Okay, so when you take the mobile first approach, you're able to put all your constraints, put all the icons, the imagery, how it's going to be arranged. Then if you're doing the same design for probably a web screen, it's easier to know that, okay, if you're blowing it up, there's a consistency in the whole arrangement. They choose your choice of fonts, your choice of spacing, the call to action buttons, okay, as the case may be. Also, it's also very advisable to use only SVGs. Um, SVGs means scalable vector graphics, right? So we know that there is JPEG. We all know JPEG, right? Like JPEG pictures. We have PNG. PNGs do not have background. But as a designer, most times we always use SVGs for the icons, for basically for icons, right? Because it helps for interactivity and animations. So even if someone blows up the icon, don't worry, we'll go over to Figma to look at these things, but just have the basic knowledge. Okay, so even if you decide to make this icon bigger, right? It doesn't look, the pixel quality is still there. It doesn't look like it's a picture you took maybe 1,000 years ago. Okay, so it's very important to use scalable vector graphics. So when you're downloading the pictures, sorry, when you're downloading icons from probably Remix Icons or Iconify or Flat Icons, these are platforms where you can download icons for your project. Okay, so you're downloading SVG, you're not downloading PNG or JPEG, right? So these are best practices for designing for responsiveness. Okay, so just like we can see here, responsive layout grids is what makes for responsive design, right? So it basically adapts to screen size and orientation, ensuring consistency across the layout. So as we can see here, we have the image of a watch, and mind you, designers design even for wristwatches. Yeah, so it's not just mobile and mobile or tablet or the iPad and then for the web. Like there are some, just like the Apple Watch, the interface would look like if you swipe to the right, you would see. For feedback, you all can hear me, right? I just want to be sure that it's moving smoothly. You can type, I'll be able to see. Okay, yes, awesome. All right, thank you. Um, okay, so it helps for, okay, I was saying it helps organize your elements on the page and connect spaces so that, everything looks consistent and efficient and functional across the different screen sizes. So the web looks consistent, like the iPhone, if you're designing for the phone, sorry, for mobile, everything looks very consistent and it's all about a responsive layout grid. Okay, so why are we talking about grids here? Because for you to design responsively, you need to make use of grids, right? So a grid is basically the foundation for order in a design. You will not want to design a page that everything looks, you won't want to design a page that, sorry, there's a background sound. Someone is pounding. Like, can you mute yourself if you're pounding, please? Okay. Okay, so I was saying that when you're designing an application, you don't want everything to look very haphazard, right? So it's very important to use grids, and it helps for proportion, rhythm, so that you're guiding your users. I know we talked about design fundamentals at the beginning of this cohort or the beginning of this class. Okay, so grids help to create and enforce consistency of all your elements. Elements are inclusive of your image, your text, the spacing, you know. So an effective grid guides the eye, like guides your user's eye. So it makes it easier and more pleasant to scan objects on the screen. It's very important for you to take note of these things so that when we go over to Figma, it wouldn't look like I'm performing magic. Okay, so what are the importance of using these grids? Firstly is visual consistency. So grids allow us to lay out our documents in rows and columns to differentiate content, and to help us to place our content within a format in a more uniform way. So everything doesn't look haphazard and scattered, right? So it also helps for repeatable patterns. So grids help us to define the rhythm of our document, the margins, the padding, the gutters, all these big grammar. Just take note of them. We'll look at it practically, okay, to encapsulate blocks of content in order to create repeatable patterns so that when you are designing a website, the landing page doesn't look totally so different from maybe other sections on the page. Like, there needs to be uniformity and visual consistency across your product, whether it's an app or a website. Okay. Also, it helps to quicken the design process. So grids help you as a designer to manage the proportions between your UI elements, such as the spacing, and the margins, right? And it helps to create a picture perfect design from the start to the finish. So when we turn on the grid, you will see that sometimes if you're designing without grid, you could just be designing outside the frame, and it's not a best practice, right? So let me check the messages. I'm seeing messages. Let me be sure that my audio is too fast, really. Okay, is it better now? Is it
Yeah, it's
better
better.
now? Okay, awesome, thank you. um okay, and also it helps to improve design comprehension. So just like our human brain, like we always say, remember that you're designing for users, you're not designing for robots, right? So the human brain makes judgments in a fraction of a second. So a design that is poorly put together would make your product look, untrustworthy. I don't know, but most of these betting websites, when you're maybe on this internet surfing, and then you could see one of all these advert that just pops up, and probably you mistakenly tap on it and you go to the website. Most times it's all these betting websites. It's always looking very confusing, and that's how the UI could look fine. I could probably want to see what betting is about, even though I would not want to see Sha. So it helps to improve design comprehension. So grids connect and reinforce the visual hierarchy. We've talked about visual hierarchy before. So now these are applicable ways you can do all of those so that your design looks, good at the end of the day. All right. So for a responsive layout grid, it's made up of basically three elements. We have the columns, we have the gutters, and we have the margins. Um, Columns are where you put the content of your design. It could be an image, it could be a text. It's not like you're going to divide it all through, like it would still be there, but columns are basically where the content is being put, and then the gutter is the space between the columns that helps separate the content, and the margins are the space between the content and the left and right edges of the screen. So let's look at this here. So this is just like a practical image of how a grid system works. So we can see here that this, where we have the red colors are the columns, then where we have the blue colors are like the gutters in between, and then the margins at the edges. So when you're designing, all your designs has to fall inside the margin. Like it should not go outside. Your users will not see what you're doing, and it will be very, very difficult for the developer. So now I think we should just go over to Figma. So we just see that quickly. Can you see my screen? Because I've made a change of screen. Okay, so let's do this together. We would create a new design file. I'm using the Figma web app. You can still access Figma your through the browser, like we all know, but I'm using the web app. It's still the same thing, one and the same thing. Okay, so it's very important to, when you want to start a design project, it's advisable for you to rename your file. Like don't give untitled. Untitled shows that you may not really know what you're doing. So don't forget, it's very important to rename your file. And the way to rename your file, you just double tap on the untitled text up here, like you can see. So I could just name this KodeCamp class. Okay. So let me select a frame. Um, let's say we decide to choose MacBook Pro. Okay, so now I decide to turn on my layout grid. If you all can see, I turn on my layout grid. We can see all of these ones are like boxes. So I would tap on these multiple icons I have here. Then I'll choose, you can see the grids, columns, and rows. So these are like columns, right? And then if I want to turn on rows, these are like rows. So this is just like a pictorial representation of that. So if I want to give, let's use columns for example. Let's say I could give my margin to be 24 or probably 48, right? So now this is like the column, this is the this is the margin. So everything I'm going to be doing on this, if I'm doing ABC, if I'm typing, let me say I want to put in a shape. For example, let's say I put in this shape, right? and then maybe I'm trying to design a card. Everything has to fall here, like it doesn't exceed here. If I'm doing that, if I decide to maybe I export this design to the developer or something, there could be some, it will look inconsistent. So, but everything has to fall inside the margin. Okay. So I just wanted to show you. So that is how to put it, to use your layout grid. This is the margin, this is the gutter, and then the number of counts. Well, for web, we most times use 12. Okay. All right. So yeah, I could decide to turn it off. Well, sometimes I could turn it on. So you turn it off or you turn it on. So you can see what you're doing, that you're still on track. Okay. So let's go back here. All right. So now now there's a question you could ask yourself. So how do you know how many columns you have to use? Well, basically, before deciding on the number of columns, even though we have best practices, which I will still share, right? But before deciding on the number of columns, it's very important to, you could probably sketch out your design on a paper. I think, yeah, we talked about the whole wireframes and how it's very important to, start out a design on paper. Well, I do lots of sketching sometimes, so, but when you do the whole sketching, you can, maybe you sketch out how the website is going to look like at the end of the day. Okay, so let's say the icon or the call to action button, sorry, the logo would be at the top left. We have the top menu bar up there, and all of that. So when you arrange how it's going to be, this content could help you to define the grid. Okay, so with your sketches in hand, you'll be better informed on the number of columns you would need. So just like you can see here on this image, we have the image. This is more like for a web page layout, right? So maybe this would just be the landing page where we have the logo here, the top, the horizontal navigation, maybe home, about us. So when you do all of these sketches, you could just know, okay, this could be maybe a 12 column grid, or maybe an 8 column grid, right? So it's dependent on the content, what you want to do. If you're designing for, let's say, maybe a fashion brand or maybe an e-commerce, right, the columns could probably change, right? So yeah, so a quick note about standard practices. So there are innumerable combinations of how many grids you can have per layout and the devices, right? But basically for mobile, it's basically the 4 column grid. For tablets, it's the 8 column grid. And then for your desktop, it's a 12 column grid. Let's do that quickly here on Figma. I could just delete this. F is a shortcut for frame. If I tap on F, I've selected frame. So I could just choose phone here. I love using iPhone 11 Pro. I do not know why. Okay, so let me tap on layout grid. So for columns, it's advisable for mobile, like we said here, is the 4 column grid. So I tap on 4, right? So I could give my gutter to be 24. So everything I'm going to be designing would be inside here. So I'm not designing all my icons, imagery, everything would fall inside, just within this margin here. It's not exceeding, and it helps for consistency, right? And then we have for tablet. If I want to select tablet, I could tap on F as well. And then we have tablet options here on Figma. Maybe I could just choose iPad or whichever one I want to use. And I'm sure your favor, like your mentor mentioned, renaming your frames. It's very important to rename your frames. So I could just say tablet, right? And then, okay, so tablet, we have 8 column grid. So I tap on this and then I select column. Then I give this 8. So you can manually choose, and then I give it a margin of probably 24. Not like 24 is the best practice, but I'm just using 24 for the sake of this class. So that's like how to go about it. All right. So okay, I wanted to say how to set up your grid, but I think we've already done it. Let's go back to Figma. All right, we've already done this on Figma. Okay, so let's take, for example, a 4-point grid on a mobile device with 4 columns, 20 pixels, and 20 pixels gutter. Okay, let's just do this quickly. So we'll go over to Figma now and choose a mobile device. Then we give it a 4 point grid. All right, so let's do this. We've already given this a 4 point grid. We've given this a 4 point grid, and with 4 columns. Okay, 4 columns, 20 pixels margin. So let's give this 20 pixels margin. Are there some text? Am I too fast? Am I too fast? You are too fast. OMG, I'm sorry. Is it my swiping that is too fast or which one? Okay, let me take it easy. All right. So, where is too fast for her? Okay, everything is too fast. Okay. All right, let's do it the easy way. Okay, so I want to, okay, so I want to give this a, okay, so want to do something practical using layout, right? So I would give this a 4 count. So you can see the different options here. So this is for a mobile screen. Let me rename this to be mobile screen. Okay, so mobile screen, we give it 4 points. I've turned this on, so it is active now. So let's give the margin 20 for the margin, and then since I'm being asked to do it slowly, and then we have 20 pixels for the gutter, which is like already here. So let me just retype it. So I'm just trying to show how you can turn on your layout grid on Figma. I hope I'm not too fast again. Okay. All right, so we'll proceed. So we'll talk about creating local style guides now. So since we know how to turn on layout grids and how to use the grids and columns on Figma, let's talk about how to create local style guides. So basically, a UI style guide ensures that users will be able to move through the new app or maybe an existing app and its many elements easily as they go through your website. So the importance of creating style guides, we'll create style guides on Figma now, is firstly, it helps to provide uniformity across the project constellation of presentations. So if I'm creating a style guide, probably for text or for colors, it will help me to maintain uniformity. So that it would help me to maintain uniformity so that I'm not going to use so many colors. I don't know if we've talked about colors in this class, or maybe to be in subsequent classes. So when it comes to colors, we have HSB and the HSL. Like so let me check, for example, I choose this red, this color here. Maybe I give this blue, right? And then maybe I'm working on a project, and let me copy this. So I have another blue here, but maybe at some point I mistakenly choose another shade of blue. So you can notice that it's quite different. Okay. So when you're using style guides, it helps for uniformity. So you know that, okay, this particular color code 1935CB is consistent across this project that I'll be working on. So you're not using different colors and then the website is looking confusing. Okay. So it also helps to reduce errors. So I will show us how to come up with style guide because it's very important and very necessary when designing, so that you're not using so many font sizes, um, different font families, different font sizes for your heading. At least it will help you to be consistent and to reduce errors, right? So I remember when I started out designing and I didn't know how to use style guides. So I was working on a project, and then the developer was also developing, but he just chatted me up and was like, Chi, can you be the word he used, the terminology was consistency, so that if a developer is working on the project you're designing, right, everything doesn't look maybe you're using 14 pixels here for the heading, then the next screen you're using 12 pixels. Your eye may not be able to judge the difference, right? But when you use style guides, it will just help you to maintain consistency and reduce errors. So it also ensures continuity and consistency of the brand, just like what I've already said. Okay, so let's create style guides for text and for colors. It's very important to follow me because assignments can come out from anywhere. Okay, so let's do this together. Hope I'm not too fast. I hope I'm not too fast. You can just type. All right, so I'll continue. Okay, so let's create style guides for a text. I don't know, but if you can mute your mic, it will be fine. It's a bit distracting. All right, thank you. So let's create, please, can you mute your mic? I don't know who is that. Trying to follow. Who is trying to follow? Am I too fast? Hey, God, do. Okay. All right, let me take a deep breath before I'm being told I'm being too fast. Okay. So what I want to do now is that I want to create a style guide. Let's say I'm working on a project, right? And then, like I said, it's important to create style guides at the beginning of your project. Okay. So let's create style guides for text and for colors, which are like the very basic elements you would use all through your design. Let me turn this off. Okay. All right. So let's say, okay, let's do for colors. Let me just choose, let me draw this shape. How to select this is, the shortcut is O for a circle. The shortcut is O for a circle. So you can see now that I have this color here, right? And based on, under these document colors, we just have these few colors that are available on this particular Figma board. So maybe this is the color I would want to use for this project. Let's take this color, for example, right? So now how to create a style guide. Okay, so we can have these as the primary color. Let's have this other one and maybe give it maybe a similar color to it. Okay, so now we have this color here. So what I do is that I tap here. Can you see? Okay, I have so many color cells in this Figma. Okay, so if I tap here, let me take it slowly. So I go over to this property panel here where we have the fill. So I tap on these four icons I have to my far right. You can see the style is hovering out, like the tooltip there is style. So I tap on it. These are already existing colors I'm using inside my Figma. So I want to create a new style. I tap here. I could now maybe give this a name. Let's say KodeCamp 1. So now I've created this style. You can see it has automatically been added to my styles. So I could add another one, for this other color we have here. So maybe I could give this KodeCamp 2. I've created the style. So now if I'm working on maybe other screens, let's tap on F to create a new screen. Let me choose a phone. Let's still use iPhone 11. So let's say I decide to create this. I decide to create this. Okay. And I want to choose the same colors. There are actually two ways to go about it, right? But let's say you're working on the project and you have over 100 screens. You will not be going back here to use this color dropper tool, this tool here. If I just hover on this now, I can copy this. If you notice, it's the same. So, but if you're working on multiple projects where the creation of style guides really come in handy. So if I tap here now, you can see the colors available. So I'm not making the mistake of selecting this and then probably trying to do guesswork to say, was it around here? So if I just tap on this here, you can see the colors available. So I could choose either of them. So that style guide has been created. So when you're doing the handoff to the developers, you just create a style guide and say, okay, this is the primary color, this is the secondary color. You put the color codes, it just helps for consistency and to reduce errors across your design. So that's for colors. And then let's do for text. So let me type Leo Ekene because that seems to be a very popular name. Leo Ekene. All right, so let's use circular. I don't want to use circular STD in this class. Okay, so let's use poppins, even though I don't really like poppins. Okay, so let's use poppins. So we're using poppins, right? And maybe for my header, because when you're designing for a project, you definitely would have the header, and you definitely have the header. Sorry, please don't distract me. I don't want to laugh. Who is leaving? Okay, let's not use poppins. Poppins everywhere. Oh, let's just use poppins for the sake of this class. Okay, so I could decide to say, okay, for every for the headings on this website, I want to use 64 pixels of Leo Ekene of these poppins, and maybe I want it to be black. Black doesn't look visually appealing. Let's do bold. Because I don't like poppins, I won't use poppins. So let's use um let's use circular. I said I won't use it, but let me just use it. Okay. So let's say we're going to use circular STD and then bold for all our headings, 64 pixels. And then let's do for more subheadings, we want to make it 48, right? And then for more text, because you would have different text, let's say book. So this is dependent on what you, the designer, want to do, right? So maybe you want to say 20 pixels for normal text. So now you can see that we have, let's make this medium. This is, and it's okay. And also one small thing, when you're designing, it's important to use a particular font that has lots of family, like it's a family font that has so many children, for lack of a better word, so that if you're doing the header or if you're doing headings, you can have bold, you can have medium, just like you can see here. You can have bold, italic. So whatever situation that you're designing for, if you want to use another kind of, font width, you will not have to start thinking of using another kind of font, right? Okay, so let's say for all our headings, we want it to be 64. For all our medium headings, we want it to be 48. And then for some other sections of the website, we want it to be 36, just for the sake of consistency. And then maybe for our basic text, we want it to be 20. So it's important to create a style guide. So we've created for colors, right? So now we want to create for text. It's almost applicable to the same way. So if you hover on this 4 icons we have here, you can see style. I have created so many styles already. That's why we have this, but we're going to create a new one. So let's say KodeCamp text 1, or KodeCamp text for header. Let me not say header. Let's use heading 1 for heading. All right, so that has been created. So want to create for this other one. So as soon as you create it, you can see it automatically just adds itself. So let's say we would create another one. Let's say KodeCamp text 2. And then this could be KodeCamp text 3. text 3. Let's create style. Okay, you can hear me, right? And then we have this one here. So we can also create another style for it. We can call this KodeCamp text 4. And then we've created the style, right? So, okay, so we've created this. So let's take, for example, I decide to just type something. Maybe Leo Ekene has come. Let me take this out here. Has come to stay, like someone said, has come to stay, right? So we have this. If I just want to choose either of these headings, you can see it's very easy. So I could just say, okay, this is the text I want to use. And it just helps for consistency. So if I maybe have another set of words and I want to use, I just want them to be basic text, I just select here and then choose whichever one it is. All right, so that's for creating style guides. So now we'll talk about creating call to action buttons. All these elements would make up to a great idea we are dancing towards. Okay, so a button is basically a fundamental UI element that will heavily Okay, so a button is a fundamental UI element that will heavily affect your interaction design. So buttons have the power to compel your users to convert. When we mean conversion, if you want them to create an account, if you want them to subscribe to your newsletter, or to carry out an action. So buttons are basically middlemen between the user and the product, and you as a designer, you're like inside that middle. And you're charged, it's charged with keeping a conversation going. So there's how I could be looking for the next action to take when I'm on a website and it doesn't work. That would definitely affect the whole UI. Just like we can see here, just this image beside, we can see, okay, you can design buttons for web and mobile. There's a micro copy here, and then the call to action button is very visible, download free. Okay, so let's look at some best practices for designing buttons. The first thing is you need to make it look clickable. Just like we can see these two images here, right? The first one here, the booking, you can actually see that it looks clickable. They've added like a shadow behind it, and then the corners are quite rounded, right? But if you look at these other ones, you will just know that this is an inactive state. For lack of a better word, this is like an inactive state, so it's non-clickable. So one of the first best practices, you need to make your buttons look clickable. And then the second one is you need to make your buttons easy to find and predict. So we could be given a task at the end of this class, probably to design maybe a card with some call to action buttons. All of this practice makes you perfect as a designer. So it's very important when you're designing buttons to make sure that it is easy to it is easy to find and predict, right? So just like this image we can see here, the first one, there's a lack of contrast and the placement is quite confusing. Everything just look all jumbled up. And if you see the second one, the button is actually contrasting. So you can know that, okay, there's a CTA button here, and everything is placed in an intuitive way. So you can easily, know that, okay, this is what I need to do when I'm on this website. Not this one that you may not even know that this is even a button. All right, so the next one is, it's very important for you to tell your users what each button does. Don't make your users to guess. I think it's in this class we read a book on Don't Make Me Think. So don't make your users guess. we know conventionally we have the OK and the cancel. It's very popular. It's a generic microcopy on CTA buttons, right? But you can make your CTA buttons more, interactive and more, more intuitive. So if you notice some of these platforms, when you want to delete something, they'll tell you delete forever. Once you want to delete forever, your mind will be like, do I really want to delete this forever? Right? Or maybe cancel booking or something. So rather than just okay or cancel or send or go, you can make your CTA buttons more, intuitive and more interactive. Okay, so just like we can see here, the images here, we have delete contact. So there's an explanatory message, which is very important. You need to tell your users what they're about to do. So if, for example, you're being given a task to design maybe a card or maybe a page or a website or something, you don't just mix everything up the way it's in your mind, right? You should try as much as possible to be explanatory. So you need to also understand how UX writing works, even though right now we are just in a crash section. So let's just take everything gradually. All right. So the next one is size matters. So it's very important for you to design buttons that people can actually click on. So just like this image we can see here, there's a confirm. Your user should be able to tap on a CTA like easily. Remember, we talked about designing in an inclusive way so that even if someone who is left-handed or right-handed can easily perform tasks on a mobile screen, for example, easily without having to stretch their fingers right from the end of this screen to the other end of the screen. I remember you're still designing inside the margin. All right. So let me see. Okay. So yeah, we have another one. Another one is for you to ensure that you provide feedback or you risk your users' wrath. Yeah. So you don't want to make your users confused or not knowing what to do. So it's important for you to define button state. At some point, gradually, we'll talk about designing for different user states. You can also read up on those. It's very important, right? So you're designing for a disabled state. You're designing for when your users will hover on the button. If you notice, some of these very great websites, when you hover, when you're about to tap, the color will change. When the button is inactive, it will look inactive. Okay, when you're pressing on it, there's another different user state. So it's very important for you to provide feedback when you're designing for buttons. All right. So let's do some little practice on Figma on the whole plenty button thing. Okay. So let me take something quick. Let me see. Okay. So let me see which of these can we just look at together. Okay. So let's see if we can. Okay, so just like this image you can see here, this is like a design for this is like a design for a mobile screen, right? So you can see that the button is sitting in comfortably. It's not, and this is like an inactive state. So how I designed it is when users put in their details, then they can continue in the app. So if your details are not being put in, everything will look inactive. But once you put in your details, it becomes like the button color will just change. Okay, so we'll just do something real quick on how to design for we'll be designing UI cards and applying shadows. Okay, so let me see. Um, so I tap on, okay, let's just use the one I have here. Okay, um, okay, so let's just do something quick. Let's probably design the same thing here, including buttons too, just like what we can see, and how to design for shadows. All right, so let me take this off. Let me also take this off. I really would just use, please, if I'm too fast, you can let me know so that someone won't cry in my DM. Hope I'm not too fast. You can type if there is any confusion at some point before we proceed. Okay, none. So let me continue. All right. So let us try to duplicate what we can see here, designing for buttons and UI cards. Okay, sorry. Okay, so conventionally, like if you're designing for a mobile, you would not design the way you're designing a website where you have maybe the home, about us, all of that. It's not going to be there. You can just have your logo and maybe this hamburger icon. This is like called a hamburger icon. Okay, so we'll just duplicate this together, looking at how to design cards and buttons. All right, so I could just tap on R. R is for rectangle, and then I have this here. So applying shadow, um, at the top right here, where you have this property panel, you tap on effects. So effects would, let's give this white. White is F as the shortcut. Then for black is 0. These are just shortcuts that make life easy. Okay. So maybe we can give this 10. So your card doesn't, the shadow doesn't look like it's fighting with you. Um, let's see if we can make this lighter. Okay, please, if I'm too fast, you can like call to my attention because we'll just be moving. Okay. All right. So I have this logo here. I will just duplicate it. I will just duplicate it since I have it already here with me. Those are saying I'm too fast. I don't know how I'm going to make this slower. Okay, do I talk in a slow way? Okay, we've created a shape, but you followed to this extent where I created the shape and then I added a shadow. Let me do it again. So the shortcut to create a rectangle is R. So I could just draw this. Let me do the first thing first. Let me start. So let's turn on columns. We can give this 4 since we said let's maybe 20. Let's do 20. It will. Okay, I'm doing it again. I'll be slower now. All right. So I have created, this is a frame. This is a frame. And how to create a frame? Let me do it. Or I could select right? Okay, so if I select this, if I'll see a list of so many frames here for both the phone, tablet, desktop, whichever one I want to choose. So we want to design for a phone. Okay, excuse me. So I could select iPhone 11 Pro, and then I have that here. Best conventions, you rename your frame immediately. So we could rename this to phone. Oh no, this is not phone. Let's just say mobile. Okay, so we've renamed this to mobile. Well, best practices too. What I like doing, I like having the image of either the time or like how a phone should look like. As a designer, you're replicating how it would look like at the end of the day. Even though, even if you don't put this, it's not like it's wrong. But I just like putting it. So I'm sharing what I like doing. Okay, so I have this, and then okay, how I got the time. Like you can download it. This is like you can download it or you can just tap on it. But I just copied it from here since I have this already here. So you can just type time. I could just type 9:45, for example. And then these icons, you can download them from their list of platforms where you can download icons from. We have, let me just type them here. So we have favicons. You can just take note of them. We have Iconify. We have Flaticons. We have Remix Icons. We have Noun Project. Which other one is coming to my mind now? I think there's Icons 1000 or so. So these are like platforms where you can download SVG icons from. Or like your mentor taught in the last class, you can just install a plugin for either of these. We have material icons and all that. So, but these are just platforms where you can download them quickly. Okay, so we would proceed. All right. So I could just download either of them. Then I just arrange it how it's supposed to look like on your phone. So let's turn on our grid system so that it would help me to be consistent in my design. So we had said that best practices is 4 columns, 4 counts. And then for the margins, we can just make this 20. So you can see now that something has shifted out. So I could just manually arrange it, just click and drag. I could click this and drag because I want everything to be inside. Okay, I hope I'm not too fast. Okay. All right. So I want to create a shape. Let me turn this off so that I could see well. Then I could turn it on at intervals. So I tap on R. R is a shortcut to select a rectangle. So I want to give this a color. F is a shortcut for white. 0 is a shortcut for black. I'm just mentioning the shortcut that's entering my head. Okay, so let me take this to the back, send to back. Let me give this F, white color, and let's look at effects. So I could just play around with shadows. You can notice this one looks like it does. The shadow doesn't look cool and it doesn't look soothing to the eyes. So I could just go to shadow and play around it. So I could just select maybe 10%. So if you notice it is now lighter, maybe I could reduce the opacity from here. Maybe make this 6%. Okay, so we have this, right? Okay, so I basically will just be copying and pasting since I have this image here. Okay, let me bring this down a little bit. Okay, the shortcut for black color is 0. Then for white is F. Just type F, you would get it. Okay, so we have this, and then I want to put this logo beside it. So I'll just copy this logo and paste it here. Well, if I want to import it, let's say, okay, we'll do importing. Okay, so this is the logo. I could make this smaller. I don't know. Could just make this smaller. And then I have my hamburger icon here. So this hamburger icon tells the user it's conventional to know that, okay, there's still more content on these websites, like on this screen. So if you tap here, it will take you to another screen, which we're going to do today. So we'll just copy this and paste here since we have it already. Even though I have, okay, I think I've already told you where you can download icons from, but for the sake of time, we'll just do this quickly. All right, so we can see that we have an image here, right? So I could, let me turn this on to be sure that everything I'm designing is inside my grid so that nothing is shifted out. Okay, so I could just quickly turn this off. Okay, so let me import an image. So the shortcut to import an image is Ctrl-Shift-K. If you're using a MacBook, is Command-Shift-K. If you're using Windows, it's Ctrl-Shift-K. I don't know, maybe either of the mentors could help me to confirm that. Okay, but that's how to import an image. So maybe let's use this image of this food. We don't want to use a single. Okay, that image is going to be big. Oh, it's gonna be big. So let's place it here. I said it. Download images from the best websites. It shows that you know your onions as a designer. Okay, so I guess we all know the very popular websites where you can download images. If you don't, I could just type them here. So you can check out Pexels. You can check out Free Pick. You can check out what's the name? Okay, Pexels Free Pick on Splash. I'll check out for that, but these are like the very popular ones where you can download good images. Like even when you zoom in, you can see all the choppings inside. Okay, so I'll take that away. All right, so we have this image here, image of this food. I could choose to just resize it, or maybe make it bigger. All right, so let's say we want to, let's add the text. Okay, firstly, before that, it looks a bit, let's put a shape here. Okay, so I could just create this and give this F. However, I want to add something like a linear effect that could help look like a blend so that it doesn't look like the food is fighting with somebody. So what I did is I tapped on fill. So rather than choosing solid, we have solid, linear, radial, angular, diamond, and image. So I selected linear. So for linear, you can choose a wide range of from this color to this other color, right? So, but we are dealing with white here. So we have this, and then let me make this, okay. So we have like a little blend, a little kind of funny blend. Okay, so let's give it a micro copy. So this could just be maybe a landing page for, okay, I'm not friends with food ordering website because we've overused it, but we don't have a choice because we all eat food every time. Okay, so let's just say access to the best meals in town. Access to the best meals in town. So now remember we did something about creating style guides. So now let's try and use that here. So you can see I could just use this. It's too big. So I would not use that. Let me use this. Let's use auto. So but it's not that you must use what you're the one who created it. So if there's a need for you to include a new style guide to fit whatever thing you want to do at a point in time, you can, easily do that. Am I too fast? Okay, how did I align the hamburger with the logo? Okay, I selected on this. You select both of them. You hold your shift key. You hold your shift key and you select both of them. Then we have these options here. It's already aligned. That's why we don't have the tidy of active. Let me make this untidy. So let me shift this down here. So if I select both of them now, and then if I select both of them, I want to make something untidy. If I select this and this, so you can see it is not aligned. But once I tapped on this align vertical centers, it has aligned it for me. So you select the two elements you want to align. Okay. What if we use Unsplash? Yeah, Unsplash is great. Is it possible to copy an image? Yeah, very possible. You can copy an image like I'm on this image now, so I could just control or command CV. I've copied it. So you can copy an image on Figma. All right, so just proceed. Okay, so access to the best meals in town. Okay, so this is like the major microcopy. We could just have another microcopy that says with few clicks, with few clicks, you can order for, or you can pre-order for, sorry, this is going under. You can pre-order for yummy delicacies. All right, so we have this. So I would make this smaller. I don't want to use either of these. I could just manually choose 14 points and make this light. Now, remember we talked about alignment at the beginning. So for consistency, your users will be reading from left to right. It's not like if you make it center aligned is bad, whichever way, but you know that your users will be reading from left to right, right? So you try as much as possible to maintain a particular. Okay, so now you see where this helps you so that you know that everything is in alignment. So I turn that on. I could turn it off. Okay, so now let's create a button. Let's create a quick button. So I could just tap on R. Best practices, like we said in that slide, buttons start from, let's say, 42 and above, like 42 pixels. So I could just make this, should we say 48? All right, so this is 323. I'll turn on my layout grid to be sure that everything is in alignment so that I know that when my users are okay, so I could make this a rounded button of probably 5 or maybe 2. Depends on what I want to do. Okay, so let me turn this off. And let me see if I could get a color from here that would enter my eye. Nope. Food. color psychology, we should use something that would make your users want to eat food. Maybe orange would go. Would that orange bright enough? Or okay, so we could use that, and then let me see how this works. Yellow, okay, we say yellow. We talked about contrasting colors. So if we use yellow on a white background, let's see how that would look. That would not work out. But if we try out yellow, no, it will not work. Although there are some shades of yellow that could, blend in very well. There's some nice shades of yellow. For let's see, this one looks like gold. Okay, so let me just copy and paste this text. Control XV. X is to cut. So let's say order now. We said your micro copy, the CTA on the micro copy on the call to action button should be, this is not visible enough. So if I make this white now, you would see that it's not visible enough. And no, we don't want to do something of that sort. Okay. Or maybe we could make this bolder. Order now. Or let's say place an order. Because if you say order now, you're not shouting on your users. So now this is to tell you that as a designer, you're almost doing the work of a UX writer and a designer at the same time, because like you need to use micro copies that are you need to use micro copies that don't look like you're shouting on your users. When you go on those websites and then you see something like stop or cancel or order now. Order now, you're not shouting on user, but if you say something like place an order, it sounds more conversational. So it doesn't look like this app is very saucy or very rude. Okay, so just proceed. So that's like a button. Let me see if we can play this to see how it would look like if we prototype it. Even though we're not in prototyping today, but let's see how it will look like. This was iPhone 11 Pro. Okay. So see, it's going to come up. Okay, so when we tap on place an order, so so now we've quickly done like how to create a button. So I could give this a shadow so it doesn't look very, very, let me see, 10%, if it will give it. Okay, so now it looks like it's coming up a bit. Or should we give this 5? So design is lots of iteration. So what you started with may not be what you would end with. You may make lots of changes. Even projects I'm working on now, sometimes I go back and I'll be like, okay, I could change this. I could make this better. Okay. So let's see if that has come up. It's still taking time to load. All right. So you can see this now. Access to the best moves in town. So now this shows you that okay, when your user would tap on place an order, like the CTA button is not hanging in the middle or doesn't look hard to find. It's very visible. That's the very major thing you want your users to do when they are on the platform. All right, so let's just create cards. Just create a quick card. So if I want to make this frame bigger, I think for Windows, you can use, I think if you hold the Alt key, either Alt or Control, I don't know if any of the mentors can help, and then you drag it down. You're not dragging everything. You can see what is happening. So I just want to drag the frame down because I have more content. So I just drag it down, right? Okay, so you're using a MacBook, you hold on Command, you click and drag. You click and drag. Okay, so we've added that. So let's say we want to create some cards, right? Maybe we want our users to We want our users to order for food when they are on the platform. So we want to show them. So now we are not doing UX design, because if we are doing UX class, I'm just showing you all how to play around Figma. But if this is like UX, you will be thinking of what kind of image would you use on the landing page, what kind of color, what kind of text would you use, what's the next section going to be about. Are you showing them, are you displaying sets of Nigerian meals or confectionaries for your users to make a choice from? So you think of, I think we talked about information architecture in this class, right? So this is where the whole information architecture starts playing out. So what's the first information you want them to see before they see this other one? So let's say we want them to see sets of food which they can order from, right? So let's give this F again, it's a white, and then we can give this an effect and give this maybe 10%. It shouldn't look so basic, so maybe we can make this rounded, so maybe 10%, right? Let's look at 5. Okay, so we have 5. All right, so let's see. Maybe we want the first thing to be melon soup, for example, right? So melon soup, which is going to be 2,000 naira. What just happened? Okay, let's say melon soup, which is going to be 2,000 naira. Sorry, that's an error. Okay, we just need to hurry up with this because, okay, so let's probably use medium. Emphasis on the money and the pricing, so maybe 2,000 naira. So once we import an image, like we said, the shortcut is Control Shift K or Command Shift K. All right, so let's get an image, or maybe we want our image to be in a circle, right? Let me see, I should have images of food on this system. Okay, so you tap on fill. There are 2 ways. Either you do Command Shift K or you tap on fill, then you select image here. Let me do it again. You tap on fill, you select the shape or whatever you want to put the image inside, then you select fill, and then you would have image. Okay, so we have so many images here. Let me see if I have okay, let's use this, but this is not melon soup, so we'll have to change it to something else. Okay, so we can see now that the image has already fit into the container. So I think this could be hamburger. Okay, so this could be hamburger. So we are trying to create a card. Let's make this maybe 16 points, too small, 20. So as you're designing, you can be checking your prototype because Figma would be saving at the same time. So you can see what you're doing if you're actually designing inside the screen, right? Okay, so okay, want to put what the food is, hamburger, 2,000 naira. Hamburger, 2,000 naira. Okay, maybe. Okay, what else do we want to put in this card? Let me check out something real quick. Okay, we know we used to see all these slash sales where we have I want to check something. where we have the cancellation. So maybe it was 2,000 naira before, but now, or let's say it was 3,500 naira. So we can just make this smaller and then give this maybe light or 16. Let's do book. Then we want to have another CTA inside, which is, so if I want to select the two sides at the same time, I hold, okay, for Mac users, you hold option and you click and drag, it selects the both together. I think for Windows should be Alt key. I don't know. Maybe we can just confirm and get back to you. Okay, but that is for selecting both of them. So I could just hold this. I want to have, okay, sorry about that. Let me drag this down. Okay, so I could just let's see if it's reflecting here on Figma. Okay, it is. So let's make this white. Since we started using white already. It's in the class soon. Okay, so let's say it won't just be hamburger. Let's put another micro copy. We are not boring, so we would say, let me make this medium, not a fight or book. Maybe you can make this 16 or 18. So you can see if I had already come up with a comprehensive style guide for all of this, it will just be easy for me to select one particular font without being, having so many ups and down. Okay, so I could just say, taste the yummiest, me and yummy. Taste the yummiest hamburger in town. Hamburger in Lagos. So we can make this smaller. Let's see how 14 goes. Okay, we can see, let's try out 13. Will it be too tiny? If I want to increase the size between every type 100. Okay, so that is for increasing the size between this first text and then the one below. If I want to add spacing in between the letters, this is what I do. You tap here, so you can manually choose 20, but we are not doing that. We are not joking. So it's going to just be 0. So it's easy for our users to read through. So maybe we can give this an outline so that it's a bit visible. We can make this 0. Maybe we can reduce the size, the opacity, so that it's not too loud. And okay, Bidemi says, should it not be? Yeah, we are all doing it together. Like we all know, design is all about iteration. So you make lots of changes till the end, even after it's been developed together. So let's see there, or maybe we can. Okay, so let me suggest this should be in the middle. Let's see how that looks. We can bring this. So to check, if you can select two elements, you see the size in between them. You hold your, I think it's shift key, either shift or alt. You select the two elements and you just hover. You would see the sizes in between if you want to maintain consistency. Okay. All right. So that is that. Okay. So for Windows is alt key. Yeah. For MacBook is option. So it depends on whatever system you're using. Okay. So let's see how this looks here. It's a bit far away. So as a designer too, you need to ensure that your design is in the viewport in the sense that if users come on the app for the first time, what you want them to see. So everything is, inside and not fighting with each other. Okay. So we could just have this. So you place an order. So that's just a quick one. There's still lots of changes that could be made based on alignment and all that. But we have there's another class supposed to start here. Okay, so basically that's just like something quick on using designing for cards, designing cards and designing buttons and how to play with the Figma environment. Let me see if that's all my slide for today. Yeah, I think that's all my slide for today. Okay, so we've just done that. We will not design all of these because it's like a personal project. But before we go, we could just quickly try out something again. Let me see if I could copy this because there's a weekly task that you'll have to do. Maybe we can try these out. Um, okay, let's just do this in 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes. Okay, so since we've done for mobile, we would do for can you all see my screen? There's supposed to be a transition. Can you see my screen? Or have I stopped sharing? Okay, something just happened. Oh, okay. Do I reshare or is a mistake from my end?
You have to share again, please.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I don't know what just happened. Okay, let me share again. Figma. Okay. Has it come up, please?
Yes, it has.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll just do this quickly before before the next class starts. So speed is another thing you need to have as a designer. So we'll just do this very, very quick. So let me copy this and take this to okay. So we'll just do this quickly. Okay, so firstly, I'll just do this. So you tap on F to select your frame and then want to use desktop. So we can tap on MacBook Pro 14. Okay, so rename it best practices. We could have vacation website. So this is like a vacation website landing page. So let's just have vacation here. And then so want to have the and then all of these images where did I download these images from? Do I still have it? I should have it. Okay, so firstly, you would know that, well, conventionally, the logo will be at the top left, and then probably the call to action button will be at the top right, and then all the menu bar will be in the middle, probably the home, all of that plenty talk. Okay, so we could just quickly tap on R to select to get this, and then shortcut is F. Let's give this a shadow effect. Let's give maybe 10% or maybe 6%. So from here, I can change the color of my shadow. I could make this color. Oh, this is weird. Okay, let's say 8%. So you can see it's a bit light, it's not shouting. All right. So let me just copy this logo we have here, Control CV or Command CV. And then I could tap on T. T is shortcut for text. Home. So we are not looking at the UX today, we are just playing around. Let's say contact us. And then let's say, okay, I forgot one thing, which is to give a layout grid, which is very important. So for this, we said best practices is 12 counts. We can give the gutter to be 20. So I know that every design I'm doing is in here. Let's not make it 20. Since this is for the web, we can make it 48. Okay, let's make this 48. And remember, like we said, dependent on the content you want to put on your design, if it's very complex, a lot of content to be there, you know the kind of grid system you're supposed to employ, right? So let me just turn this off so that I can see clearly. Okay, so we have home, contactors, and let's say locations, since it's a vacation website. And then we have this here. So to check out that everything is in alignment, distribute horizontal, okay, it's in alignment. And then want to create a call to action button. Apart from this, auto layout still work, which we are not talking about today. Let's give this probably 48. Okay, and then we could give this more rounded form. So let's say maybe we want this to be 30 or maybe 20. Okay, that looks really awkward. Maybe we could just give this 5. Okay, so we have this. Let me select all of this so that I can place it in the middle. Okay, so we have all of this now. So an active state, remember we talked about different user states. So to let your users know that it's the home page they're actually on, you can decide to change the color. So, it looks different, and probably include an underline, dependent on what you want to do as a designer. I could just give this as an underline and make this maybe the same color, too thick. We could make this maybe 1 point. Okay, so we have this, we have the CTA. Let me quickly just copy this and paste it here. So this could be book now, since you're booking for a vacation. We can give this color, right? Let's turn this on to be sure we're still inside. Okay, we're still in. So contrast, we can make this white. So F, just something basic, and you can see there's enough breathing space, so your elements are not shouting for help. Okay, so I will just quickly copy this image and paste it since I have it here already. So Command CV. If I want this image to go behind, I right click and select send to back. So you can see everything is behind now. So if I want to resize this, I click and drag. I'm holding my shift key. I click and drag, so everything is inside. Okay, so that is placed. Okay, and then let me drag this down. Okay, let's just do the landing page since we're out of time already. Okay, so I could decide to say choose let's use a font that will depict enjoyment. So let's probably use realistica demo, and then we could make this bigger. Okay, maybe make this white. Depends on what you want to do, right? So for consistency, you can use the same CTA. So if you notice, this may not be too visible for my users. So I could just probably decide to put a shadow here, just like we have this here. So I could just select R and get this. Then maybe give this linear, turn this around. Sorry if I'm too fast, you can just watch the videos again. So I could make this, let's see, we could make this of this color or this color. Just play around. There are so many colors. Just play around with the colors, whichever one that would look more. Okay, how do you know the space to leave at the top and the bottom? So when you say top and bottom, what do you mean by top and bottom? Just type, I could probably see what you mean. We have like 3 minutes to go. Okay. Okay, bottom of the frame. Well, I don't want to say use your eye. Okay, but you can also put in, we talked about layout grids, but as a designer, you also need to make use of like your eye. That's one thing. So I can turn on this. Okay, I can choose to have rules here, right? So maybe I want everything to be 40, everything to be 40. Sorry, I was a bit distracted. Okay, so maybe I just want my margin to be 48. So it's dependent on what you want to do, right? There's no hard or fast rule, but you just need to make sure that everything looks consistent. So like you can see here, I could just select all of these so that I know that everything is in alignment and nothing is missing. Let me take this down a bit. So now for layout grid, you can turn on both your row and your columns at the same time. So this is for rows. I can decide to add for columns now. For columns, let's make this 12. Maybe we can make this 48, right? And then so now in this kind of situation, using this now, if I drag this down, you can see that it's just the grids inside that are changing, but everything will still help me to be in consistency. So if I'm designing the top of this frame, I know that from here to here is not, all my design elements should not exceed this particular section. So even below, I just know that from here to here, it's not going to exceed it. So it just helps for consistency. So you can turn on your columns and rows at the same time. So let me turn them off so I can see what is happening inside here. Okay, so let me see if there's any question before we go. Okay, please, is a product designer same as a UI UX designer? Well, right now, product is a UI UX, a product designer is definitely a UI UX designer. So I'll just explain this based on my own personal thoughts, right? But as a product designer, you are like owning the product. You're not just designing the user interface and the user experience. You're also thinking about the business part of it, right? So a UI UX designer could just do a one-time gig and just, hand off the project to the developers or maybe the product owners or whosoever the case may be. But as a product designer, you're thinking about what kind of features are we going to add to this our application or this our product to make it better. Is it serving the needs of our users our and the business part of it, right? Because you cannot just be in business just to meet the needs of your user, right? So as a product designer, you're also thinking about the business part. You're owning the product as your own. You're thinking of the business strategies. What kind of new features do we add, to make the whole product better at the end of the day and solve people's problem. You may necessarily need to learn. You just need to also know how UX research works, right? Because even if you're a designer, you would be given maybe findings from user researchers. If it's a great team you work with and they have teams of researchers that would do all of those findings and give you the feedback. So how do you synthesize this information you're being given and then implement it in your design to make it better? So you're not just doing UI UX and you leave it. You are now owning the product. You are doing more than just user interface and user experience. Okay, I don't know if that answers your question. So will installing so many plugins slow down your Figma? I'm not too sure. I don't really know. I don't want to say what I'm not sure of, but I don't think it should because Figma is a robust product that has the ability. But why would you want to install all the plugins on Figma when you can just have some that are necessary to whatever project you're working on? Yeah. So how did I maintain an equal spacing between the text? I selected the text. Let me ungroup this. I right click to get ungrouping. So I could just select the text, right? And then we have distribute horizontal spacing. So this will help you to let me scatter it. Okay. So I select all of them and then you can see all of these now are active. So I could tap on tidy up. It has helped me now to align it vertically. So to align it horizontally, I just sorry, I'm mixing up horizontal and vertical. Okay, but you just play around with it. This will help you for amongst the different elements. So, I don't know if there are any further questions. We've played around Figma today to see how to design buttons and cards. I'm not sure we'll be sharing the assignment now, but assignment will be shared on Slack. So are there any other questions for me? Okay. Silence means no. No other question. Okay, how to export frames. You just select the frame. You select the frame and then you tap on export. You scroll down here. You see export. So there are different options to choose PNG, JPEG, SVG, or PDF. So you select either of these depending on what you want to do. You can also preview. So this is me previewing what I'm about to export. So if I tap on JPEG, tap on export. I will get it in my system as an image. So there are different options here: JPEG, PNG, SVG, or as a PDF. So that's how to export your frame. How again did I add the prototype? Okay, I've not actually added a prototype. I just wanted to see how what we're designing would look like. So what I did was you select the frame. Okay, so let's prototype this. Let me change this. Let me change this to none so that anything goes. Okay, so I tap on this and then I tap on this play here. We have present. So when you tap on this play icon here, it would show you how this website will look like when you probably when it is developed, or you can just scroll down to see how it would look like. I hope this helps. So I could choose actual size. So this is how it will look like. So if I scroll down, this is how what are we seeing. So that's how to do the whole prototype stuff. But we're not going into prototyping yet. It's just to preview how your design would look like. Okay, so I guess there are no further questions. Okay, thank you too. Billings. All right. Okay, so with that being said, that's the end of our class today. I hope you had a great time. Further questions, please reach out to our mentors. We'll still play around Figma. And, it's not just to learn the tool. You also need to understand how design works so that, everything will be good. All right. Thank you all for your listening time. I should stop presenting my screen now. So I